party people, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about Midnight Sun. Before I get started, I just wanted to show you a little clip of me opening my package for the first time. This is my book. I've been waiting all day for it to come in. I've been tracking it. Okay. It's here. Midnight Sun, it's here. It's even more beautiful than I thought. Alright, first we're going to talk about the things that I absolutely adored. The dedication. The dedication Stephenie Meyer wrote to her fans was so sweet. I really enjoyed getting more of Alice and especially Emmett, because I feel like we don't really know Emmett that well in the main Twilight series, so it was really cool getting to know him better in this book. I also really loved hearing more about Charlie and his inner workings, but more on that later. Something I also loved was learning more about how Alice's visions work, the strands, the knots, the inevitable, but also the probabilities. It was just so cool, and especially how she lives in the future, like that's crazy. It was so sweet to see how much Charlie really loves Bella. Like we knew it, but it's just so nice to have it confirmed. I also thought it was cool to note that Edward really likes Jacob. He thinks he's kind and honest and open. I think that was just a really cool thing to add. I can't even express to you how cool it was when Jasper was projecting boringness over Esme, Alice, and Bella in the field. That was so sweet, and I loved it so much. I didn't even know he could do that. It was so cool. And it was also cool when he projected the battle clarity over all of them when they were rushing to save Bella from James. Honestly, thank God Jasper was there, because if he wasn't there to calm down Edward, I can't even imagine. It was so sweet to see how much all of the Cullens just love Bella so much. I thought it was really cute that both Bella and Jacob think of their dads using their first names. It was so sweet when Jacob asks if he can cut in for a dance, and Edward thinks about how respectful and sweet Jacob is. That moment was just so cute. And I also think it really contrasts Jacob later when he's being so forceful about trying to break up Edward and Bella. And I know he gets a lot of flack for this, but honestly, imagine if someone you knew was thinking about turning into a dead person for their boyfriend. Obviously, you would be concerned. Something that was really sweet to me is that both Edward and Jacob love Bella so much, but it's because she's so kind and she's so sweet and soft-hearted, and the fact that that's what they're drawn to is just really sweet. Honestly, I think kindness is just an underappreciated value, so I liked seeing it emphasized in this book. I thought it was really sweet when Jacob made a mental note to be kinder to Carlisle after he saved Bella's life. I really loved the theme of fate versus free will. I thought that was really well done in this book. Next, we're going to talk about a couple things that I did not love. I did not love the characterization of Rosalie, just because I feel like there is more to her than meets the eye. And I know we're looking through Edward's perspective, so of course there probably is more to her than meets the eye, but I do wish he would have digged a little bit deeper and tried to understand her better. I felt like the word abstracted came up a couple too many times. There was a lot of emotional yo-yoing happening within Edward's mind, which I guess is normal, but it was just like, it was a little overwhelming at times, the ups and the downs. I do wish Stephenie Meyer maybe would have addressed how Jasper used to be a Confederate soldier and made him acknowledge this, or maybe try to make amends or admit he made a mistake. I think that would have been a good thing to add in this book, a good chance to add it. Next, we're going to talk about things that shook me to my core. All this new information just really was fascinating to me. For starters, of course, I know Edward's perspective is obviously biased against Mike Newton. However, I did not know Mike Newton was kind of vulgar and also kind of dumb. I did not know that. I thought he was just kind of a sweet, boring boy, but this made me not like him as much. I don't think I knew how much of a struggle it really was for Jasper. I knew he struggled to be around human blood, but I didn't know it was so intense. When I found out that Bella gets her powers from Charlie, that blew my mind. That was so cool. I loved that new piece of information. It made total sense. I didn't know that Esme actually knew Carlisle ahead of time before her transformation. I really love that Emmett and Edward played matchmaker and set up Angela and Ben, who are such a cute couple. They're great together. I loved that dynamic. But I just thought it was a little bit funny because Edward also feels like he helped facilitate the relationship between Carlisle and Esme, so, you know, he's somewhat of a matchmaker, to be honest. It was really neat to see the first time that Edward met Siobhan and Maggie. I've always been curious what the CD was that Phil gave Bella that she listened to, and to find out it was Linkin Park was really cool. It was interesting that the Cullens lived in New Orleans for a while, because that immediately made me think of the originals. I thought it was very interesting that Edward says before the Volturi there was the Romanians and the Egyptians. Obviously we knew about the Romanians from Breaking Dawn, but we didn't know about the Egyptians, so that was cool to hear about. When Edward licks Bella's tear in Twilight, I always wondered what that was about, but hearing it from Edward's perspective about how that way he would always have part of Bella with him just really made that scene so much more significant. I might be mistaken, but I actually did not know Alistair was a tracker, so that was an interesting little nugget. I was shook that Alice wanted to transform Bella right after the threat of James arrived. I just did not see that coming, and honestly, that would have been a good solution. But I suppose if we did that, we wouldn't have her friendship build with Jacob, and we also wouldn't have Renesmee, so it all worked out for the best. But Alice's idea to just change her into a vampire was a good one. It also gives more meaning when Alice says in New Moon, "This is getting ridiculous," about Edward refusing to change Bella, because it shows that Alice has been team change Bella from the very get-go. It was really wild to me that in some futures, it takes them decades to chase down James and finally get him, and it also was crazy that James was willing to kill people like Mike Newton and some of Bella's old teachers. That's crazy. It was also so wild that there was a full-on police chase, brocades, stealing a car in the middle of a freeway, and it barely even registers for Edward because he's so focused on Bella. I mean, and then they cause a pileup. Like, it was a wild scene. I was really shook when Edward actually considered killing Bella instead of letting her turn into a vampire. That was just really crazy to me. It really puts in perspective how much he did not want her to sacrifice her life to become a vampire for him. I thought it was really interesting that Jacob could already smell the vampire on Bella, but Edward didn't even think anything of it at the time. Okay, after they have come to the ballet studio, when Alice says, "Edward, you have to do it," I always thought that meant, "Edward, you have to let the venom spread, she's becoming a vampire." But no, Alice meant, "Edward, you have to bite her again so that the vampire venom can spread faster." That is crazy. Honestly, thank God Alice was there, because I don't know if Edward would have been able to stop if he couldn't see the visions Alice had of a happy future with Bella. I'm also really glad we got to find out why Charlie didn't come to the hospital that Bella was at, and we find out it was because he had to testify in a court case. I thought that was a really good point to add. It was fascinating, but also a little weird that Renee's inner voice projects so loudly. I wasn't expecting that. And then the whole characterization of Renee as someone different than Bella sees her, it was a little hard for me to wrap my head around, and I'm not sure if I liked Edward's understanding of Renee's character, but it did add another layer for sure to Bella's upbringing. I did not know Renee's last name was Dwyer. Is that Phil's last name, or is that Renee's last name? I don't know, but I just thought that was interesting. It was also very interesting at the dance. There's a split second where Edward wonders if Bella will eventually marry Jacob once Edward leaves, and I just thought it was interesting that he could already see that they had a connection, and I actually really believe that if Edward had left, or if he hadn't been there in general, Bella and Jacob probably would have ended up together, so that was just kind of a little interesting moment of insight. Now we're going to talk about things that I found hilarious. This book had unexpected moments of just hilarity. The first funny part was how Edward had no idea he was falling in love with Bella. He just knew he wanted to talk to her, and he liked her as a person and all this stuff, but he didn't realize what was happening, I guess. I just thought that was so funny. So funny, I laughed out loud when Bella is asking about Rosalie and Emmett's multiple weddings, and Edward can't figure out where she's going with this, so he's like wondering if she wants an invite to the next one. That was so funny. Also, Edward calling the truck a geriatric sloth. I mean, that's a way with words. I love it. Also, Edward trying to fool the tracker, holding the bag of sports equipment like it's Bella's body. I could just see that in my head, and I just thought it was so funny. Also, when Edward's on the freeway and he can't fit in a gap, so the rearview mirrors end up snapping off, and then he uses Emmett and Jasper looking out the windows as his rearview mirrors. What a funny image. I also thought it was hilarious how annoyed and frustrated Emmett gets when Alice and Edward do their little communicating thing. Also, how Edward thinks that Bella's more comforted that Alice will be at prom than the fact that she's going with Edward was so funny. I also thought it was so funny how Jacob is all embarrassed that Billy thinks that Edward is a vampire when he literally is a vampire. And then when Jacob is like, well, I wish he was a vampire because then I would have a chance with Bella. Honestly, be careful what you wish for, bud. Alright, so now we're going to talk about some miscellaneous thoughts I had while reading. In recent years, I feel like people have decided that Bella's boring. She's a damsel in distress, she's flavorless, all these different things about Bella. And I've always loved Bella. I always thought she was a great protagonist. But it's really been interesting to see through Edward's eyes how Bella is just a good person. She's so selfless, she's so observant, she's just good to the core. And there's like these little stories that we didn't get in Twilight about Bella teaming up with somebody in biology who's failing and needs help, or about her defending someone who's being picked on. It really just helps us build a more solid picture of Bella and realize the reason she doesn't mention it is because she's so humble. But it's really interesting to see it through Edward's eyes. It almost reads as a defense of Bella's character. I'm so thankful I've read Twilight over 35 times, probably over 40 times, because at every moment I knew exactly what Bella was thinking. So it was really easy for me to compare Edward and Bella's perspectives. This is interesting. I feel like Alice has lived so many different lives and timelines that I actually think she's probably way older mentally than she is in terms of years. In part of this book, Edward talks about how if everyone was as selfless as Bella, the human race would die out. I thought this was interesting because in Stephenie Meyer's other series, The Host, these alien species are known for their altruism, but they're actually able to conquer humanity. So I just thought that was an interesting little parallel. It's so ironic that Edward is the mind reader, and yet it's Bella who can read Edward better than he can read her. And I also think it's interesting that Edward can see so much, and yet he can't see that it's inevitable that Bella's gonna turn into a vampire to be with him. All of his family knows it. Alice knows it. That's what's gonna happen, and yet he refuses to see that. While we're talking about Alice, I also thought it was interesting just to see how other people's decisions have so much impact on our lives. Like, Bella's future changes so much based off of how Edward's feeling. I'm really curious to find out, do Rosalie and Edward ever repair their relationship? Because this happens in Twilight. In New Moon, Rosalie is the one who tells Edward that Bella's dead when she's not, leading to them both being in danger. And then of course we have in Breaking Dawn when Rosalie picks Bella's side over Edward's, and I'm just really curious if they were able to mend their relationship and get back to where they were. It also made me really interested to know what does change Edward's mind. How is he finally able to reckon with taking Bella's life and turning her into a vampire, because he is so against it. I don't think I even realized how against it he was until this book. And is it just that the Volturi might come? Is it that he accepts himself and he realizes he deserves love too? Is it that he finally starts listening to Bella? Like, it needs further investigation. Something also interesting about this book, it makes me think that people don't see themselves as they truly are. Because according to Edward, Bella is amazing, the best kind-hearted person you've ever met in your life. And according to Bella, she's totally average. According to Bella, Edward is this godlike, amazing, smart, brilliant, musical, talented guy who deserves everything in the world. According to Edward, he's, you know, an evil temptress, basically. Like, he thinks so low of himself. He doesn't think he deserves any of this. And it makes me think that the truth of who we are is probably in the middle. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is all the times I cried. Less than I expected, though. Okay, the first time I cried is when Edward is thinking in the future of how Bella will talk about how Edward took her to prom. And just, that would be her memory that she has of him. And that just made me so sad. After I finished the book, I just sat there teary-eyed because, like many of you, I've waited over a decade to read this book. And it was everything I dreamt it would be and more. And just to have it fulfill my expectations and go above and beyond, like, it just meant so much to me. And it was over. And, you know, we're learning so much about the Cullens and this community and all the characters and the setting, and then all of a sudden the knowledge is just out and we're back where we were with a finite set of knowledge about this world, and it just made me so sad that it's over. Also just made me really sad for Edward because he loves Bella so much and he just doesn't think he deserves that kind of happiness, and she doesn't deserve to be shackled to him forever, and that just is heartbreaking. All in all, Midnight Sun was amazing. I would recommend it even to people who haven't read Twilight, but especially to people who have read Twilight, I would recommend it because it just provides so much more context for all of the characters and all of the books in the series, honestly. I loved it so much, and it made me love Edward so much more, and Bella, and Charlie, and Jacob, and all of the Cullens. Wow. There's nothing else I can say. Just wow. That's it for today. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, comment. I'd love to talk to some of you guys about your thoughts about Midnight Sun. Bye! Hey Mom, that Irish name that's like Siobahn, how do you say that? He has to lose the side, can't fit in a gap, so he drew Edward, feeling self-conscious.